anti-racism warrior with a radiant soul. This is how the Jewish Chronicle described Pete Newbon in the article reporting his death at the age of just 38 on the 15th of January 2022. I'm not sure how many of you in the audience this evening knew Pete Newbon, a quiet, understated lecturer on Victorian and Romantic literature at Northumbria University. Pete was no household name, and yet his life and death had a major impact, as attested by the many beautiful tributes shared on social media. While there were tributes focused on the influence that Pete had in his academic field, passing on to students especially his adoration of poetry, his death was a most serious blow to the community of fellow activists fighting anti-Semitism. For parallel to his academic career, Pete was an activist. He was a director of Labor Against Antisemitism, the advocacy group set up in response to the anti-Semitism crisis that exploded under Jeremy Corbyn. In his anti-Semitism work, Pete displayed great insight, judgment, and courage. As David Hirsch noted in his tribute to Pete, published in the Journal of Contemporary Antisemitism, not everybody in Britain understood the significance of Corbyn and his anti-Semitism, and how it was symptomatic of a whole anti-democratic worldview. The great and the good, the film directors, actors, poets, and academics who got caught up in the excitement of it all and who whitewashed Corbyn didn't notice the anti-Semitism. But Pete noticed, and he chose not to remain quiet. As David put it, Pete's work online against anti-Semitism was extraordinarily good. He was funny. He knew how to write a tweet. In 240 characters, he could puncture an anti-Semitic claim. He could show it up to everyone. Yet, even though he chose to fight, Pete never neglected the importance of quiet acts of kindness and solidarity, which were a central mark of his personality. Ewan Phillips, spokesman for Labor Against Antisemitism, recalled for the Jewish Chronicle the time in August 2020 when he and fellow activist Emma Picken were embroiled in a particularly difficult battle on social media. Pete organized a letter of thanks for all the work Ewan, Emma, and the group's founder, Denny Taylor, had done. As Phillips put it, it was totally unexpected, but it made us all feel so incredibly proud. Yet sadly, this pride in Pete's work was not shared by his university. When Pete tweeted a picture of Jeremy Corbyn reading the famous children's book, We're Going on a Bear Hunt to Children, which had been edited to make it seem that Corbyn was instead reading the infamous The Protocols of the Meetings of the Learned Elders of Zion, a 19th century forgery created in an attempt to encourage the anti-Semitic belief that Jews were engaged in a worldwide conspiracy for global domination, Northumbria University launched an investigation into Pete, accusing him of anti-Semitism. Despite Pete's own assertions that it would be a terrible mistake and a sign of university censoriousness and fear of the mob to sanction a Jewish academic and campaigner against anti-Semitism over a tweet that the university acknowledged was not anti-Semitic, over charges of ad hominem that are simply not ad hominem, and for the charge of bringing the university into disrepute when all he had ever tried to do is to protect his people and his community from those who hate us and would seek to do us harm. And despite the fact that campaigners against anti-Semitism on campus warned that Northumbria's bizarre intervention could put Jewish students at greater risk. And despite the submission of a document signed by 3 academic experts on anti-Semitism, which detailed why the allegations made against Pete's tweet that it was anti-Semitic had no substance to it, the university concluded that the allegations had been upheld and issued Pete with a final written warning. Pete was not willing to quietly accept the accusation of anti-Semitism, and he was planning to fight it as libel in court. But the pressure of it all was in the end too much to bear. Pete was not murdered by anti-Semites, but the hatred that he personally had to endure, the pressure that the university investigation put on him, and the libelous accusation of being an anti-Semite were all contributing factors to his suicide. As Josh Howie observed in his column in the Jewish Chronicle, the online fight against anti-Semitism is an exhausting one. So few against so many. Their gaslighting and racism unrelenting. Howie is right in highlighting that it's time for our institutions to finally get to grips with what's been going on online and put some resources into the following: therapeutic support, financial support, technical support, and social media instruction with a database of sources and information. It is the mission of the London Centre for the Study of Contemporary Anti-Semitism to provide a structure to support academics and activists in the fight against anti-Semitism. And we want to celebrate and acknowledge those who commit to this crucial work in honor and memory of Pete. Pete's death is an enormous tragedy. Of course, first and foremost for his family, his wife Rachel and their 3 daughters, his sister and his mother, who are here with us this evening, but also for his many friends, those who knew him in person and all those who fought alongside him online. Yet as we acknowledge with the price that we are awarding in Pete's name today, Pete's legacy also serves as an urgent reminder for all of us that we have to call out anti-Semitism for what it is, a murderous ideology, and that we must fight it together whenever we see it raise its ugly head. As we are gathered here this evening, talking about anti-Semitism as a murderous ideology, we all hold at the forefront of our minds what happened a mere 2 weeks ago when Hamas terrorists breached the borders of the sovereign state of Israel to go on a rampage of murder, torture, arson, and kidnapping, showing the world that their anti-Semitic rhetoric was not mere words and did not distinguish between civilian and soldier, between children, parents, and grandparents, between women and men, between Jew and non-Jew, not even between Jewish Israeli and Palestinian Arab Israeli. In his poem, The Diameter of the Bomb, the late Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai describes the far-reaching impact of terrorist murder. Let me quote just one small section. And a solitary man, mourning her death at the distant shores of a country far across the sea, includes the entire world in the circle. And I won't even mention the crying of orphans that reaches up to the throne of God and beyond. As we mourn the victims of anti-Semitism, the more than 1,400 murdered on and since Simchat Torah on that Black Saturday just 2 weeks ago, we become part of that far-reaching circle, which Amichai describes, that far-reaching circle of the greatest tragedy and loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. And as we recall Pete's memory this evening, we too become part of that far-reaching circle of mourning Pete's death. And so I invite you, if you are able, to rise for a moment for the recitation of the memorial prayer, honoring Pete's life and the life of those murdered in Israel. שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמות כל אחינו ואחיותינו, אנשים, נשים וטף, שמתו ונהרגו מפני אנטישמיות ושנאת חינם. בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתם. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרו בצרו החיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר Amen. God, full of compassion, dwelling on high, find perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of your presence, among the holy and the pure who shine with the light of the heavens, for the souls of our brothers and sisters, men, women, and children, who have died and who have been murdered because of antisemitism and baseless hate. May the Garden of Eden be their resting place. Merciful God, keep them in the shelter of your wings for eternity, and bind up their souls in the bond of life. The Eternal One is their inheritance. May they rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. This prayer from the Jewish liturgy provides us with language when words fail us. But it is also important to acknowledge that sometimes there are no words. There is only silence, the silence of death, the silence after destruction. When darkness fills life, when martyrdom becomes a constellation of faith against the unrelieved black of space about us. There are no words to reach beyond the edge of night, no messenger to tell the full tale. There is only silence, the silence of memory. And so I invite you to remain standing for a little longer as we link our silences.